We've established a principle, this week's evolutionary love code. The fundamental movement of reality is the movement from loneliness to loving, from alienation to integration, from fragmentation to union. This is the movement of Eros. On the inside, Eros feels like pleasure. The failure of Eros feels like pain. So what is Eros? Eros is, and we have a definition. And the definition is that we've worked with extensively. It's one of the fundamental first principle formulas. Eros is the experience of radical aliveness. And if someone wants to write it in the chat box, we'll actually write together, that'd be fantastic. Eros is, and if you're listening to this and you're not with us live, that's fantastic, to actually take the time now and actually write it as we say it, because when you write it, something happens. Are you up for doing that? If you're up for doing that, that helps. So Eros is the experience of radical aliveness, seeking, desiring ever deeper contact, dash, meaning ever deeper intimacy, dash, and ever larger wholes. So let me say it again. So Eros is the experience of radical aliveness, seeking, desiring ever deeper intimacy, ever deeper contact, and ever greater wholes, ever greater wholeness. That's the movement of reality. Whether we're talking about the elementary particles from the very beginning of time, the new particles that emerged with the supernovas, there's an entire new generation of elements, the 100 elements that emerged. The movement of reality all through the levels of matter until matter triumphs in life. The first nanoseconds of the great flaring forth, the great Big Bang, moves us through all the levels of matter. We get to galaxies. Galaxies generate stars, and first generation stars and second generation stars. And out of stars, the sun, for example, right, out of one disk, right, in the arm, right, of the field that was sun, right, emerges, right, the 9 planets. This entire movement is the movement towards ever greater intimacy. It's ever deeper contact, ever deeper configurations of intimate coherence with ever larger wholeness. And that wholeness comes alive, right? Matter becomes life. Then we move through all the stages of life, and this same movement of Eros animates the unfolding of life. And the unfolding of life then explodes, triumphs, as life awakens to its own self-consciousness, to its own self-reflection, which we call, right, mind, self-reflective mind, or the human being. Now, in this movement, there is this constant coming together, this constant movement of Eros. And the movement of Eros is the movement of love. That's what Eros is. So the movement of evolution, at its core, is the evolution of love. And love means that I'm able to step back, make room for you. We embrace. There's a higher level of union and embrace. There's a higher level of mutuality, recognition, union, and embrace. From subatomic particles all the way up to human beings, right? Love means I step back. Let's catch this. This is a new understanding of the first principle. To love means I step back. I give you space. I give you autonomy. I affirm my own autonomy. And yet, at the same time, we embrace our allurement and we create a larger union. That's the movement of love. So that movement defines reality. Whenever a particle is by itself, it's lonely. So it seeks contact. Now, again, that's not a metaphor. It's not a declaration. That's not a fundamentalist dogma. It's not a New Age claim. It's actually the nature of reality, right? The lonely particle seeks relationship and seeks stable relationship that can birth new reality. That's the very structure of the universe. It's the very structure of the intimate universe. So that structure awakens in me when I seek intimacy with you. Does that make sense? It's the same structure. And when you actually get that, we get to be at home in the cosmos for the first time, right? Does that make sense? When I get that knowing, to know you is my greatest desire. One particle wants to know the other particle, and all knowledge is carnal knowledge. And one particle wants to senses the other particle. And when I sense the other particle, I want to make contact, and I want to create a larger union. And that's called sensuality. And that's called sense making, right? And that's called carnal knowledge. And Adam knew his partner Eve. There's a primal carnal knowledge, right, which drives reality, right? There's a quantum hedonism, meaning this movement of eros is animated by pleasure. The interior quality or feeling of eros is pleasure, which is why fragmentation is painful. When we drift apart, when we lose, right, that interior sense of being connected, of being intimate, of being witnessed, because being witnessed is an essential dimension, right? We feel seen, we feel witnessed, we feel held, and we understand that in our coming together, a larger whole is created, so we feel needed. We feel the allurement of other towards us. We feel desired. We feel seen. We feel recognized. We're chosen uniquely by the other. Right? Wow. Right? These are the dimensions of the movement beyond loneliness. Now, if I can, I want to try and locate this, right, in text. I'm going to locate this in a sacred text because we need to, in order to create a new world. It's why we call this one church or one communion, right? One community. Right? And we're particularly invoking religious images, not because we're going back to the old religions. The old religions were the great religions, but the new religions are going to be the greater religions. But by the greater religions, we mean a shared world spirituality, where there's a new shared narrative, there's a new shared story, right? There's a new shared vision. But we need to do that not by dissociating from the ancient texts, but by integrating, right? First principles are based on, right? We're here to articulate first principles, what we used to call and we still refer to as Dharma. And Dharma or first principles is the best integration of the deepest insight of pre-modern, modern, and postmodern wisdom streams, all of them integrated into a larger whole greater than the sum of the parts. That is the new story. That is the global ethos for a global civilization. And the greatest revolutionary act of this moment in time is to articulate first principles. That's what Da Vinci did in Florence in that time between worlds, which was the Renaissance. Right? What Da Vinci did in Florence in that time between worlds, which was the Renaissance, is to articulate, right, a new set of first principles. And to articulate first principles, we want to take from ancient text, which deploy the eye of the spirit and the eye of the heart. And we want to actually bring together the eye of the senses, empirical knowing in all of its forms, and the eye of the mind, all forms of science and mathematics. We want to bring together all of the sciences, interior and exterior, the eye of the mind, the eye of the heart, the eye of the spirit, the eye of the senses, into a larger knowing. That's carnal knowledge. That's to know, right? That's sensual. That's true sensuality. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to bring together this notion of the intimate universe being driven by eros, right? This movement from loneliness to loving. And we're going to see how the intimation of that movement already in a sacred text. That's gorgeous. Okay. But before we do that, we're just going to spend a couple of minutes doing that. I want to just read to you for a second, right, what a first principle is, okay? First principles, and if you're listening to this, right, in the replay is as good as the first play, right? This is made for the replay. You didn't, right? So, but be with us here, and you can actually look at the bottom of your screen, and you'll see a link to first principles, and you can press that link, and you can find what I'm about to read. So first principles express the underlying, eternal yet evolving, universal principles of value that need to be the rudder of civilization's next stage, right? First principles are urgently needed, personally and collectively, to respond to the catastrophic and even existential risk that challenges us, invites us, and demands our response at this moment in time, at this time between worlds. First principles are ancient, time-honored, and venerable, even as they are evolutionary, emergent, and new. Isn't that gorgeous? Right? First principles are a weaving together of the most crucial, validated truths from all the wisdom streams, premodern, modern, and postmodern, into a new whole greater than the sum of its parts. Right? First principles are what we have referred to as the new story, or a new Dharma, or a global ethos for global civilization. First principles are implicitly shared by all the many paths. And first principles are the foundation of the one mountain itself. I just want to invite you to just copy that. Copy that, if you can copy it from the chat box right into your own desktop and have that. And we could talk for 7 hours about each line in First Principles, because that itself is that reading of First Principles itself is a new sacred text. But I want to have that in the background, right, in the context, okay? Right, as we step in. Ready? So I want to read you a text if you can. And if we can, and if someone's willing to write the text in the chat box, that'd be great. And God said, and remember, the God you don't believe in doesn't exist. We're in Genesis, 2nd chapter of the book of Genesis. And then the divine voice speaks, and the divine voice says, Lo tov heyot ha'adam levado. Lo tov, it's not good. So who's going to write with me? Anyone going to write with me? Anyone up? Okay. And if you're sitting at home, any place in the world, jot it down yourself. Don't just listen, be active. Let's actively engage. Right? God says, the divine speaks, right? It's not good for the human being to be alone. It's an incredible text. It's an incredible text. It's not good for the human being to be alone. It's an unbelievable text, right? Because if you get the refrain of the beginning of Genesis, which is the sacred text that redefined humanity, chapter 1 of Genesis is all reality being witnessed by the infinity of intimacy. So it says, and God saw that it was good. And God saw that it was good. And God saw that it was good. So this is about this quality of goodness that's inherent in reality. Goodness is not a social construction of reality. It can't be hijacked dogmatically by any religion. Of course not. It's not the surface structure of any religion. There's a shared notion of the good, the true, and the beautiful. And that notion is reified. That notion is innate in Kosmos itself. And that's what the sacred text means when it says, and God saw that it was good. So you've got this refrain in chapter 1 of the book of Genesis, which is, it was good. It was good. It was good. Reality is witnessed by the divine, right? And God saw Rihanna, and God said, Rihanna's good, right? God saw that it was good. And then after chapter 1, after this explosion, this cascading cacophony, right, of divine utterances, infinity speaking, infinity desiring finitude, and manifesting reality, right? In Buddhist terms, the unmanifest becoming manifest. Right, in Kashmir Shaivite Hindu terms, right, the Shiva and Shakti come together and birth a new reality, right? Wow. But the explosion of the Big Bang, the quantum vacuum generates, right, from the infinite, a new reality, right? Wow. Like beyond imagination, right? The greatest mystery that's never dispelled, right? This intention of the infinite, this love that the infinite has for the finite. Infinity, William Blake is in love with the projections of time, right? So it was good, it was good, it was good, it was good, it was good. And then, now Lori, go deeper with it. Okay? Go step in with me, Lori. You ready? Let's step in together. All of this good, it was 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 good of chapter 1 in Genesis, then climaxes in chapter 2. And if you read this text as a literary text, read it as a literary text. If you read it as a divine text, read it as a divine text, as a psychological text, but it's a first principles text. That's what's most important. This text is articulating intuitions of first principles in the interior sciences. We're now going to bring together, you see what we mean when we say we're going to bring together the best of pre-modern, modern, and postmodern in a set of first principles. So we're now demonstrating one dimension of how we do that. We're merging evolutionary science with an original text. So all of the it was good, it was good, it was good, it was good, it was good of chapter 1 climaxes in chapter 2 where it says it's not good. It's not good. What's not good? It was good, it was good, it was good, it's not good. What's the it's not good? It's not good for the human being to be lonely. And do you understand what that means? That means that this failure of goodness isn't psychological, it's essential. Because in chapter 1, all of the statements of it was good refer time and again to the pre-human world. This is before the human notion of goodness, right, even exists. So goodness means the essential first principle structures of reality. That's what goodness means. Goodness means the nature of the universe, all the way up and all the way down. Goodness means the laws of evolutionary love, right? The eternal laws of evolutionary love that define and demarcate reality. Charles Sanders Peirce, the great polymath, wrote a wonderful essay called Evolutionary Love. I'm now working with, and I won't share the names, with a couple of incredible human beings, right? Among them, right, Barbara Marx Hubbard, right? We're working on, and we worked on it right before Barbara passed, and now with another partner that Barbara brought to the table on a book on the 10 laws of evolutionary love. So this man, Charles Sanders Peirce, right, wrote an essay called Evolutionary Love that I'd never heard of, actually. I had actually written an essay with Ken Wilber called Evolutionary Love that's at the end of the Unique Self book. And if someone wants to throw the Unique Self book or a link to it in the chat box, everyone wants to get that essay. It's a great essay on the basic principles of evolutionary love. So someone sent me an essay by Charles Sanders Peirce where he also wrote an essay 100 years before on evolutionary love, which made me ecstatic. So there's laws of evolutionary love. And the laws of evolutionary love are the it was good. That's the it was good of reality. That's what reality is pointing to in chapter 1 of the book of Genesis. And God saw it was good, meaning these are the laws of goodness, right, that define reality. This is reality moving towards the good. So after all of the goodness of chapter 1, we then arrive, it's not good, or we're shocked. At all of the goodness in one divine, literary, infinite flick of the wrist, all of the it was good is nullified and it's not good. And what's the it's not good, friends? It's not good to be lonely. It's not good to be alone. And alone in this text means lonely, right? To feel a failure of intimacy, right? And have any of us felt lonely? Right? We don't confess to loneliness. We confess to a lot. We don't confess to loneliness. Loneliness means, right? And who's felt this in the last week? Right? Who hasn't? I have. I felt lonely in the last week. Okay, who's felt lonely in the last week? Can we find each other here? Can we be on the inside of this and actually be real? Right? I feel like I'm not at home, and what am I doing here? And what's it about? And how did I get here? Right? And I'm not at home in the world. I don't feel held. I don't feel recognized. I don't feel seen. I don't feel witnessed. I don't feel desired. I don't feel chosen, right? I don't feel needed, right? So this text cries out, it's not good for the human being to be lonely. Wow, what a text. I'll make for the human being, eselo ezer kinegdo in the original Hebrew text. I'll make for you a helpmate who opposes you. What's a helpmate that opposes you? What does that mean? How can you have a helpmate who opposes you? Either the person's a helpmate or they oppose you. But actually, if you don't have mutuality in a relationship, right, if your partner doesn't have the power to stand and face you, if you can't be face to face, if it's a relationship which is fundamentally of domination, where you've given up your personhood instead of merging into a larger union, then you remain alone. So you need a relationship of interior to interior where you can say no to each other in order to say the great yes to each other. Right? Wow, it's stunning. And what does it mean? What does it mean to be in a relationship where you can transcend loneliness? That's the goal. The goal of this text is the transcending of loneliness. It's not good for the human being to be lonely. And there's a description, which we'll study at a different time in great depth, and some of us have looked at it together over the last decade. There's a description of the actual steps to transcend loneliness. But I want to at least touch the core of it. To transcend loneliness, you have to first know what loneliness is. What does it mean to be lonely? What does it mean to be lonely? Right? What does it mean to be lonely? So usually people describe loneliness. Does that make sense? People describe, okay, we describe loneliness, right? And how it feels. And that's beautiful. And it's hurt, right? And it's jagged and it's painful and it's sometimes agonizing and it's desperate. Give me some words that describe, not a definition, give me some words that describe loneliness, right? Anyone, and write some down. If you're listening at home, write some words down. Just give us some words so we can feel it together. And let's find this on the inside, right? Empty, right? Suicide, right? Separated, right? Despairing, heart-wrenching, right? Heartbreaking, right? Aching, right? Desolation, right? Contracted, right? Not heard, right? Unloved, right? Meaninglessness, Simona, right? Right? Invisible, right? Right? That's the actual experience, right? I doubt it all, right? Right, Shati? I doubt the whole thing, right? Peter, right? Right? Can you follow that? Just alienated, Like, those are all feelings. Those are the feelings of loneliness. Those are critical descriptions. We have to actually evoke and feel it in order to transcend it, okay? But in order to transcend, in order to move from loneliness to loving, we actually need something more. We need actually a first principles definition of loneliness. We need to define loneliness in its essential definition. So what does loneliness mean? Right, so I want to go back to a story that I've told you before, right? Some of you, half of us, I've joined recently. Some of us are new. Some of us have been together for a decade in this revolution, and we're just getting started. We have not yet begun to revolt, right? We have not yet begun to articulate first principles. We have not yet begun to love. So I want to share with you a story that for some of you have heard and some of you haven't, but it's really, for me, the foundational story, right, of what it means, right, to be lonely and how we transcend loneliness. And it's a story about my son, Eitan. And Eitan means healthy strength. And there's only one person besides my son who I gave that name to, a beautiful man who is with us today, right? And Eitan is like 5 years old, right? 6 years old, and I'm away. I was living then in Israel, and I had traveled to Scandinavia on behalf of the Israeli government to speak in a number of communities, and kind of did this kind of Scandinavian tour thing, and was deeply involved in, the particular needs that Scandinavia had at that moment. And I felt that the messengership of the Israeli government, and I wanted to fulfill the mission and, properly, and I did everything I could to prepare. And as I'm leaving, my son, comes over and he says, Abba, right? It's Dad. He says, take this with you. And it's this box, kind of a shoebox, didn't quite fit into my luggage, but I took it with me anyways. And I go to get to Scandinavia, and I've got this big box of, books with me, and I've got, a bag of luggage with me, and, and I'm teaching place to place, and it's super intense, and it's a gorgeous trip. And Eliezer Sheffer, who's one of the heads of the Jewish agency in Israel, was with us on the trip. He's a beautiful man, right, who's since passed. And it was just an intensely holy, beautiful time. I remember it, like it was yesterday. And I get back to Israel, and I get home, and I come inside, and it's like midnight. And Eitan's usually happy to see me the next day when I come home, and I see that Eitan's up. And he looks at me as I walk in. He says, Abba istakalta? He says, Daddy, did you see? And my heart dropped, because his box had somehow gone to the bottom of the pile of books. And I thought I'd look at it on the plane on the way back, because I knew he wouldn't ask me about it on the phone, because those were short calls, when long distance calls then were a big deal. And I hadn't looked at the box, and he looks at me, and right, there wasn't even time to lie. And my heart just broke into 1,000 pieces. And I said, Eitan, he said, Efshar ot chance, right? Could there be another? Could you give me another chance? Right? Like, wow. And so in this real and mythical story, right? This larger than life story beyond me and Eitan, in this mythical moment, right? In this mythical moment, I go to the car, and I get out the suitcase with the books and the boxes at the bottom. And I take out the box, and I walk back into our place, and Eitan's there, and his tears rolling down his cheeks. And I look, and there's a door handle, right, from our first apartment in Jerusalem, right? And there's a picture of his mother, right, from the Palm Beach newspaper. And there's a cross pen. I don't know who remembers silver cross pen. So I had a cross pen that disappeared, and there was the cross pen, and there's a rock. And I say to him, Eitan, maza hadvarim ha'elu? Eitan, what's the stuff? He says, Abba, ze hadvarim sheli. Natati lecha v'lo kibalta. He says, Daddy, that's my stuff, right? I gave it to you, and you didn't receive it. So I said, Eitan, can I receive it now? He says, yes. Right? So we all have a box, and that box is our stuff. This is not a psychological category. This is the nature of reality, and that box is our stuff. It's the song that only we can write. It's the dream that's unlived. It's the wound that's untransformed. It's the greatness that hasn't been witnessed. It's the way of loving and living and laughing, and it's the hidden story. And it's the gorgeousness, and it's what we think is the ugliness, right? It's all the stuff that's in the box of what we might call our soul print, right? It's like a fingerprint. It's this indelibly etched individuation, but it's not your separate self, right? It's your individuation beyond ego. Reality seeks uniqueness from the very beginning. One of the plot lines of reality is uniqueness. Every galaxy is unique. At every stage of reality, every particle is unique. The way two particles come together is always unique, okay? Right? And so this kind of, let's try and find this, right? This stuff that's mine, right? My unlived life and my lived life, my unwitnessed life, and all of the pain and all of the joy, my holy and my broken hallelujah, that's all in my soul print box. And we look for someone to receive it. And we're lonely until it's received. So loneliness stems from three places. First, we can't find a receiver. There's no one to receive our box. Second, we don't know how to share, how to tell our story. But that's not really the core. The core of loneliness is really the first dimension. We're not sure what's in our box. Because in our box is not just the meeting between soulmates of our trauma and our wounds and our brokenness. That's just one piece. It's not just to be a soulmate together, it's to be what we call a whole mate. It's our vision, it's our unique gift. It's our unique way of being and becoming. It's all of us showing up in full eros in the world and making the contribution that's ours and ours alone to make. And it's realizing reality needs your service. Reality needs your gift. Reality desperately needs the intimate chords of your gift in the unique self symphony. Okay? That's what it means, right? To transcend loneliness. It's to know what's in your soul print box and to stand for it and to reclaim the dream. How many of us have a dream that's been lost? Who's willing to kind of be, we willing to be real here together? Wherever you are. If it's a yes, just write it down if you're listening, right? And if you're in the chat box, write it in the chat box. How many of us have a dream about ourselves that's been lost, right? Right, a dream of what we thought we would be or what we thought our lives would look like, right? How we thought we'd give our gift and it didn't quite happen that way. And somehow our fate didn't organize it that way. So this is the moment to reclaim that dream. This is the moment to turn fate into destiny. Not, again, and the seventh time I've said this today, not as a psychological construct, not as some kind of superficial moment of, right, soothing or self-soothing. And that's valid and that's good, but so much more than that. Reality is alive in you. You are, I am evolution in person. Your reclaiming of your dream is reality's reclaiming of a dimension of its dream that can only be alive through you. And your reclaiming of your capacity to give your gift, and it might look different than you thought it did. It might look different, that's true. It doesn't look like the way we thought it did. Right, wow. I'm an Orthodox rabbi. I was originally trained as an Orthodox rabbi, right? I lived for many years in the state of Israel. I never thought I would start a think tank together with John Mackey and Barbara Marx Hubbard and Ken Wilber, right, which had nothing to do with Jewish survival, where that wasn't my goal, where I wasn't trying to reweave the fabric of the state of Israel. And then as an expression of that think tank, we'd start a new movement called Many Paths, One Mountain, which was seeking to create an international communion, a global communion of pioneering souls to articulate first principles. Never dreamed that would be true. Never dreamed that it would be true. It wasn't even possible. Never dreamed that I'd come together, right, with Christina, right, to create a, right, wow, right, a phenomenology, right, of Eros, right, which had 12 volumes about a new vision of sexuality. Never dreamed that that was possible. Right, never dreamed that, right, I'd meet someone named Sean, right, and Sean and Christina and myself and Claire, right, would come together with James and Mickey and try and create an international festival in order to evolve the very source code of culture. It's not for me to do. And I'm an Orthodox rabbi. I read Jewish texts and I try and bring Jews back to Judaism. Right? It's got nothing to do with my dream. No, but actually, reality is different, right? Right? We're busy making our plans and reality is living us. We're lived by something larger than ourselves. We're called by something larger. Right? To be a prophet is to find my unique voice, to clarify that unique voice, to stand in the full audacity of that gift, to reject comfort when it's easy comfort, when it's comfortably numb, and to engage the pain and the tension that we need to get true pleasure. Because there is almost no greater pleasure than giving your unique gift. That's the movement from loneliness to loving, where I'm recognized, I'm needed, I'm chosen, I'm desired, I'm adored, right? Wow. My soul print is received and it's celebrated, literally celebrated, because each of us deserve to be celebrated. But again, last time I promised you, last time I'm going to say it, not just psychologically, it's not a social construction of reality. When we celebrate each other, when we witness each other in celebration, when we liberate each other from loneliness, when we receive each other's soul print boxes, when we affirm that underneath race, underneath Black Lives Matter and all lives matter, underneath identity politics, right? Underneath critical theory, there's actually a set of first principles, and those set of first principles are inexorable, and they define a reality, and we can orient ourselves underneath race and underneath Jewish and underneath Black and underneath Chinese and underneath Indian is your soul print, is your unique self, is your unique story. And every nation has a unique self. And those unique selves collectively and personally come together in a unique self symphony, right? Right? That is the vision of the future. The vision of the future is when every story is worth telling, and every story needs to be received, and every story needs to be witnessed, and every story needs to be celebrated, and no one's left out of the circle. Wow. That's what first principles are about. Wow. That's the revolution. That's the heart of the revolution. That's what intimacy means. Intimacy means I am seen. I am recognized. I am desired, right? I am needed, and I am celebrated, right? Wow. The universe needs our individuality. So you know what it is, friends? We need less personality. Get out of the personality and more individuality, right? We need your individuation. We need the glory of your story. We need the infinite shimmering beauty, right? That's you. That's reality having a you experience. And it's your responsibility. And I want to say this, right? I want to say this with your permission, but even without, it's your absolute obligation to live your story all the way. It's your absolute obligation to play your instrument in the unique self symphony. But it's not an obligation imposed by a government. It's not imposed by a teacher. It's imposed by the very structure of reality itself, awake and alive in you. So if I could take something personally, I witness you. I celebrate you. Let's say it to each other. I witness you. I celebrate you. Right? I witness you. I celebrate you. Thank you, everyone. Oh my God. Oh my God. Let's find each other. Let's see each other just for a second. Actually see each other's faces for this last second. First principles. I witness you. I celebrate you. I liberate you from loneliness. The movement from loneliness to loving as the basic driving movement, right, of all of reality. Amen. Amen. Cha. 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 Let's find each other. Yes.